In today's video, we're talking about how there's yet another PlayStation Store scam and how Sony's only advice is tough luck. Then we're going to talk about how thankfully Sony is fighting back against $80 games for now. And finally, what game had Digital Foundry saying Sony has done a really nice piece of work? How's it going, everyone? It's me, Jimmy Champagne. I hope you're having a great week. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I spent the weekend in Chicago for my wife's birthday, and when I got home, I looked at my AirPods before I went to the gym today and noticed the right one was missing, which is weird considering I never took my AirPods out of my pocket once this entire weekend. So I look at the Find Me app and my right AirPod is at the Ralph Lauren store, and I know how I lost it now. I bought these jeans. I don't know if you can see them. And I like them so much, I decided to wear them out of the store. And when I was putting my old jeans in the bag, somehow, some way in my back pocket, my AirPods opened up and the right one fell out. So yeah, that was the only weird thing that happened to me over the weekend. I hope yours was great. I'm sorry I had to tell you that. I just had to tell someone that story before I go see Until Dawn later. So thank you for listening. Let's jump into the first news story here, which is about all of these scam games that keep popping up on the PlayStation Store. I am sure you've seen this happen before, where like a big game gets super huge on Steam, like Lethal Company, or now it's Repo, one of those style games. Then suddenly, like 2 days later, there's a game called Repo Squad or like Repo Core or something like that. And it has very similar art that's just different enough to where the developer won't get sued. And then people get tricked into buying these games. And because Sony is so lax about giving refunds on the PlayStation Store, you have to go through a bunch of hoops to actually get it. And it's a big problem that just keeps getting worse and worse. This is the worst example of this phenomenon I've ever seen, and I don't think Sony's response is good enough to it. It all has to do with the game Schedule 1. I almost call it Section 1 every time. I don't know why. It's called Schedule 1 if you don't have any PC related people in your life and you just don't care. Essentially what it is, it's an open world game that's like a drug dealer simulator. So you like start in an apartment, you move your way up all the way to a factory or a barn. There's like cops. It's crazy. I was watching my friend Ben and Dustin play it from the Sacred Symbols podcast, and I was like, not really my thing right now. I have enough to play, but I can see how these management sims are so addicting because it's just like task completion over and over again with that dopamine hit of a reward that's noticeable, like going from a hotel room to sell drugs to having a house, like you could put more drugs in it, I guess. And a lot of these games are made by small teams, like 3 or 4 people. They throw them together with like Unity or Unreal Engine assets, and it's more focused on the core of the game. So they're easy to make, right? Like I'm sure it's difficult as a game is to make, right? Like it's not something you can just throw together in a day. But if you got enough people sitting around at some random ass company that's scanning Steam for a new game that's blowing up in the top charts that isn't on console, which happens very frequently, you could probably throw one of these things together in just a matter of weeks, because you have people you hired that know how to do it. You're not learning from the ground up like a lot of these indie developers who make the original game are. So the company that's notorious for doing this on the PlayStation Store is Publish Me Agency. And I get why people are buying these games, because if you look at the shakeup of where people are playing games, PC is ever growing and it's getting bigger every day, but it's nowhere near the amount of people who are playing a game on a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. So if you see a game that's blowing up on Steam, it's not dumb or like weird to assume that it would already be on the PlayStation Store, because why would you just support PC outside of the fact that you're a small team learning how to make games? So as usual, once they got caught, they just changed the name, and Sony is basically not doing anything because they changed the name. They're not going to have any consequences, like Sony saying, well, it wasn't right that they stole these people's name for their game and basically cloned it, and that's just pure copyright infringement and IP infringement, but they did change it. So we're not going to like remove this publisher from the store or give them any consequences. And it's crazy because again, I'm old. I was big in the PS3 generation. I was on the PlayStation Store buying indie games all the time. The PlayStation Store was like boutique. It was the best of the best. You only got great games on the PlayStation Store if they were download only. Like you could put faith in the fact that they were trustable. You could download them. It would actually be a game. It wouldn't just be a clone of a Steam game. Like Xbox 360 had all this random crap that were like Minecraft clones, weird indie games that were just thrown up on the store. Like if there was ever a big game that you could turn around a clone for quickly, it would show up on the 360 marketplace. But PlayStation was always immune to that. And then something changed during the PS4 generation where they just followed in Nintendo's footsteps and said, moderation, don't need that. Let's fire the entire team. I don't know if they did that, but it seems like they did. And then there was no moderation. So then you saw tons and tons of these games, like ripping off Sony IP, ripping off big Steam games, and they got to do something about it. Like, I understand that, like, for shareholders or whatever, it looks good if at the end of the month you can say, well, last quarter we had 1,600 games on the PlayStation Network, but developers, they're working real hard, and this month we have over 32,000 games on the PlayStation Network, and people are buying them because, you know, if a bunch of people show up to buy this clone game, I mean, it's just another number you can add to the list of total sales made on the PlayStation Store, even if some of the people ask for a refund. And I see comments from people all the time on Twitter and on other YouTube channels that are like, imagine not having this media literacy. And it's like, yeah, Redditor, I just saw that they used an AI to like trick Redditors into thinking anything they wanted, and all it took was just making the Redditors think that it was group consensus. So maybe you're not as smart as you think. And also, it's just not what you should have happen if you're selling a console for $500 and charging people money to not only buy games but interact with the internet on that console in the first place. Like, Sony wants to be the boutique brand. They're selling $700 PS5 Pros. They're not dropping the price of the regular PS5. They've got $200 controllers, $150 headphones. Games are going to be more expensive. They're already more expensive at $70. Like, I'm not getting the budget console where I have to subscribe to Game Pass to get day one access to these games, right? Like, I'm buying the cream of the crop, the best console on the market. I should get the best, most premium experience possible, right? So yeah, I wish Sony would put some effort into banning these developers. I mean, it was cute when the game Life of Black Tiger came out back in the day. I'm pretty sure that was on PS4, and it was notorious for being a game you could just boot up and platinum. And then those were a plague where, like, it was just random cookie clicker games, right? Like a brick breaker, where if you hit the brick on the breaker once, you got the platinum trophy, and people were using that to farm platinums just for their vanity. But like, it's not cute anymore. It's just getting worse every day. And I'd prefer they nip it in the bud before it becomes a major problem and people are scammed out of like $70 or $80 instead of like 15 or whatever the hell Section 1 ripoff costs. But yeah, just so you know, if you ever see a game blowing up on Steam and it looks like it has N64 graphics, you can probably bet that there's not a PS5 port at launch, especially if it's in early access and you can just wait for the 1.0. I guess you just got to do a little bit of Googling before you buy any of these new games that are blowing up on Steam. But like, side note, I'm really sick of the Repo and Lethal Company style games. I don't think there are a lot of them on PS5, but they're basically like all the same. You have 4 players, there's voice chat that's proximity based. You go into a level, you collect shit, you put it on a scale, you get money, you buy stuff between rounds, and you do that over and over again. These games must take 5 minutes to make because one blows up every weekend and it's a completely different game, and I'm just so sick of them. I saw 2 more announced last week when I was already getting sick of Repo. So like, maybe it's a good thing that a lot of these games don't make it to PS5 at launch, and a lot of them, I mean, they're not going to come out of early access in the first place, so PC players are just wasting their money on this stuff. I saw it called friend slop, and that's exactly what it is. All right, we criticize Sony. We got to have a positive news story here. They're fighting back against $80 games for now. There's a lot of legitimate fear out there in the world that they're going to start charging $80 for games because, you know, they have an excuse now. Nintendo, they're coming out of the gate with their Mario Kart game that has an open world that's completely empty and, you know, looks fine. It looks like an early PS4 game. I'm excited for it. I like Mario Kart. I got the Switch 2 bundle pre-ordered, but like, I'd say that's a $60 game, and I would be mad if they were charging $70, and now they have the gall to charge $80 for it. So everyone was like, great. Nintendo's charging for their 2-generation old games $80. So now Sony, Microsoft, and everyone else are going to start charging $80 for games. And the one everyone was looking at was Ghost of Yotei, right? Like, if you look at premium, first party, high fidelity, crazy open world graphic games that are made to like showcase the absolute power of the PS5, I can't think of a better game to do that than Ghost of Yotei. Not just because Sony doesn't release first party games anymore, but because it looks legitimately awesome. So if there was one game Sony was going to go out of their way to charge $80 for, a lot of people, myself included, just assumed, and I think rightfully so, that it would be Ghost of Yotei. So instead of doing a state of play or a showcase or anything to announce this, last week they announced it's coming out October 2nd, which makes me worried for GTA 6. And if it's not, I mean, they're doing the Elden Ring thing again, where they released Horizon Forbidden West at the same time as Elden Ring, and they released Horizon Zero Dawn at the same time as Breath of the Wild. And clearly they haven't learned their lesson there if that's what they're doing, because I just saw Borderlands 4 moved its release date up to September 12th, which means, you know, same publisher as GTA, maybe they are going to hit that 2025 release date, and then Sony's going to have a lot of problems. But you know, they announced the release date, and interestingly, they announced the price was staying at $70, which is good because, you know, they could have easily said, hey, Nintendo, they're charging $80. We're going to increase the price of this game to $80 and people will probably buy it. And honestly, I think a lot of people would show up for Ghost of Yotei at $80. I mean, there's a real drought of true first-party games. They've done a good job this generation with second and third-party games that are exclusive to the PS5 and get a little bit of a punch-up over what we'd see traditionally. But like the true heavy-hitter PlayStation 5 games are few and far between these days. People are hungry. People are starving. If they put out an $80 Ghost of Tsushima sequel and it's good, I mean, people are going to be mad that they have to pay $80, but like they're going to feel partially justified with a quality product. If Sony came out and said, look, this is what development costs now, we have to charge $80, people would be mad for sure, but I think it would blow over relatively quickly. The only thing I think that's really holding Sony back on this is just the lack of money and capital going around in the world. Like America has its own problems right now with the whole tariff situation and everything being too expensive. But like if they charge too much for this stuff, traditionally it's not going to work out so well, right? Like Sony's always wanted to have that sweet Nintendo deal where like they can charge $80 for a game, keep it at $80 forever, never drop the price, and then remaster it 8 years later and sell it for $70. Like actually what they're doing with Breath of the Wild is insane. They're remastering it, which is really just the PS5 patch that we got for free with all these other games back in the day, and they're charging more than it cost originally, which is absolutely nuts considering it's an 8-year-old game. Now, is it that good? I don't know. I already own it, so I'm just going to get the $10 upgrade pack, but like I don't know if I'd be willing to spend that much on an 8-year-old game. It feels a little crazy, but thankfully Best Buy is only charging $55 for the original Switch version right now, so you can get a little bit of a deal. Whereas Sony, when they release first-party games, I mean, they drop pretty quickly. They drop down to $50 or $40 within just a couple months, and you know, you get rewarded for waiting because not only do you get the game for cheaper, you also get the day 1 patch, you get the day 2 patch, you get the month 1 patch, you get all the DLC. Like the longer you wait with a lot of these other publishers' games, the better of a product you get. And Nintendo's not immune to that either. I'm into the sports games like Mario Golf. The way Nintendo handled sports games during the Switch generation needs to be studied as the stupidest shit ever. They took like 60% of the game out for no reason, sold it for $60, and then released the back half of it as free DLC when it was just like getting it to where a normal game would be. So like that's a one example. They also did the same thing with Mario Strikers and Mario Tennis, if I remember correctly. And if you buy the Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild, you have to buy the expansion pass separate still for like $20. So like they're doing crazy shit with their money over there too. But like, I don't know. There's so much nickel and diming going on all the time. I feel like even Sony understands that they've absolutely pushed it too far and that they're very close to that line people are at where they're just not going to buy games on day one. And as much as people love to say Sony games have long tails, I mean, that only helps so much, right? Like, yeah, if you sell 2 million copies, that's great. But if you sell 1 million of those copies at launch and 1 million of those copies when it's $40 or $30, I mean, you're only getting 3/4 of the original revenue you would have gotten if everyone showed up day one. So like, you got to do the money equation there and realize that maybe waiting is not so good for Sony. But speaking of cheap games, got to do my obligatory coverage of Days Gone Remastered. I mentioned I was in Chicago over the weekend, so I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I will be buying that $10 upgrade for both my PC copy and my PlayStation 5 copy because I just like supporting games that I really enjoy. And I was curious if this is going to be a Last of Us Part 1 situation where they completely rebuild a lot of the game and make it look like a new product, or if it's going to be a Last of Us Part 2 situation where they put the PS5 patch on the disc and called it a new game. And thankfully, according to Digital Foundry, they went above and beyond with this remaster. Like, they completely redid the lighting, they cleaned up a lot of the textures, they made it look a lot more realistic, and they made it look a lot more scary, which I appreciate. It also has a new mode with the Horde Assault mode. It's got a bunch of other tweaks that you can do for the actual story. So this really does seem like the definitive version of Days Gone, which is great because that game came out a little bit ahead of its time, I think. I think it needed more time in the oven for sure, but also what they were trying to do with it was kind of outside the scope of what any other open world game Sony had created up until then was really trying to do. Like, it has 2 massive open world maps. You've got the drifter bike. It's a really good looking game. It uses Unreal Engine 4, which is uncharacteristic for a Sony first party game. So I'm just glad to see it really come out and shine in the way that I thought it did back in the day. And I really hope you guys are considering at least picking this up. I know it's a lot tougher of a sell as a brand new product because, you know, if you already own the game, you can get it for $10. And what I would do is try to find a cheap used copy because I'm sure you can get those for $6 or $7 at this point, and then you can just pay $10 to upgrade it. But like, if you really want to see more of this stuff from Ben's studio and you don't already own the game, I mean, you could shell out whatever they're charging for it. It's got to be at least $40 or $50, and it's a great game with a ton of content in it. And as far as zombie hordes go in single player games, I don't think any game has matched this, and I don't think any game will for the foreseeable future. So give it a shot. it's a good remaster from what I've seen, and I'm excited to jump back in. I haven't played it since right around when it came out. I want to get the platinum in it. I might go for that, but there's a ton of stuff to play right now between Expedition 33 and I'm almost done with Lords of the Fallen. I want to check out V Rising 1.1, so maybe the platinum will be something I do later, like around Thanksgiving or Christmas. But yeah, let me know if you're playing it. Let me know if you still like Days Gone down in the comments below. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.